I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome everybody. And then there were five. We do have a quorum, and for some reason exec session took longer with just five of us than anyway. But we're all good, and we're going to get right into the meeting, and we probably have an adjustment modification to the agenda.
Yeah, I'd like to offer a supplemental personnel report. If we could add that to the consent. And then from facilities meeting last night, we'd like to have a discussion on the 2007 bond. If we could add that as a discussion item.
So item C, correct?
That'd be right.
All right. And that really takes care of everything, right? And this other.
I think that's
a supplement. Yeah, yep. There we go. Good, perfect. And glad to hear from anybody that wants to speak. And we do have a few folks signed up. And Mary Ann. Oh, there you go. Hey, Mary Ann.
Good evening. My name is Mary Ann Simpson, and I work for the Ithaca City School District as a speech-language pathologist in pre-K. And as you know, I'm an ardent supporter of pre-K, but to surprise you all tonight, I'm not here to advocate for pre-K. I have another comment. I have actually a question and then a very polite suggestion. I was wondering if any of you happen to see the post on Twitter and the attached letter by the West Genesee School District recently. The Board of Education, the superintendent, and the president of the teachers union worked together to draft a letter to the governor stating their dissatisfaction with the educational reforms presented by the governor in his most recent State of the Union address. I printed out this letter for you to read, see if you would like to, but I will summarize it for now. This group of educators itemized their concerns under these general headings. Overall disagreement with the proposed educational reforms, opposition to high-stakes testing tied to teacher evaluation and district funding, and policies that are in general creating increased educational inequity. They went on to advocate for the full and equitable funding of school districts and the end of the gap elimination adjustment, which we are all talking about all the time, it seems. They closed with demanding that Governor Cuomo release the state aid runs so that districts can adequately plan for the coming year. I thought it was a very thoughtful and well-written letter, and I know that many of us, I'm sure many of the board members, have sent letters or spoken to our state legislators on these same issues or related issues. And I know that many people are going to attend a community forum that's going to happen next week. I think Catherine's going to talk about that. And what I'm wondering, here's where my suggestion is what my family says I'm very famous for, not telling people what to do, but just offering a suggestion. I'm wondering if our school district might consider sending a message like the one West Genesee sent. It doesn't necessarily, wouldn't necessarily say the same things. It would be consensus of what you all feel. But I think that if every school district in our state wrote a similar letter, it would at least make an impression. And certainly, it doesn't seem like it could hurt our cause. So that's my thought. Thought it was a great letter. It went out on Twitter. Actually, one of my colleagues saw it. I didn't see it, and she couldn't be here tonight, so I'm here to share it with you all. So, thank you.
Thanks, Mary Ann. And Catherine.
So, Mary Ann just kind of alluded to why I'm here. I'm Catherine Sonera. I teach English at the DeWitt Middle School. And I'm here tonight to kind of advocate a little bit for political action. Brad is constantly urging us to speak out and talk to our legislators, and I came tonight to invite everybody to an opportunity in our community. You may have heard that throughout the state there have been community forums. Concerned members of the public, concerned teachers, administrators have been coming together with their local legislators to have forums to discuss the budget, Cuomo's plans for what he wants to do with education, and to basically have kind of a town hall public forum. And our region will be having a public forum on Thursday the 19th from 6:30 to 8 o'clock. And I came specifically to ask you guys all to mark your calendars and please be there. As of right now, our confirmed speakers, Barbara Lifton will be there, Irene Stein from the Tompkins County Democratic Committee will be there, there will be representatives from Congressman Reed's office there, superintendents, we have a long list of superintendents from South Seneca, Lansing, TST, ICSD, Dryden, T-Burg, maybe some others. We're still kind of working on confirming who will definitely be there. But lots of people with strong voices who are coming out to hear what the public is experiencing. This is also supported by the Fine Arts Boosters. They've been promoting it. So we're hoping for a really, really good turnout. Hoping to see all of you there. Some flyers to pass around so that people have something to put on their refrigerator to remind them. Thanks.
And Catherine, if I'm not mistaken, it's at Lansing Middle School?
It's at Lansing Middle School, yeah.
Right.
Lansing Middle School in their auditorium. Do you want to pass over like that?
It's on my schedule since I knew where it was. So,
Excellent.
And we really appreciate the email blasts from SOS and Fine Arts and your efforts, and Mary Ann as well. But Adam, go ahead.
Yes, hi. So Marion, had some good points, and Catherine, so I won't dwell on too much. Just that I will look into the document as well. I think I see Dr. Brown in my monthly meeting this week, actually. So we can look at that, and we'll see what the interest is there in coming up with some language. I know that I was here last fall with a resolution around high-stakes testing, and it didn't seem to go anywhere. But this one maybe will, just considering it's also involving funding and whatnot. So yeah, we are in a state of this. This is as many are saying across the state. I've been in all multiple times. We are a group of people who need to preserve public education. From the funding all the way to rejecting devastating reforms that would ruin public education for principals, teachers, and students. Without the proper funding, quality education diminishes, and these reforms would severely injure what we do every day with the students in our classrooms. And in the future, it's not even just next year, it's in the future, what will education be? And just lastly, because we are only way and that the testing is here, and whatever happens in April and so forth, the current status of testing is here, and it is coming upon us. Receiving a lot of questions and so forth as to where are we as a Board of Education Central Administration about respecting the right of parents who do opt out their child. Do we have a sit and stare policy? Is it based per principle? What do we have? We have a lot of questions coming in, and I know I don't have the answer. Talk to my colleagues, we don't know the answer, so we're curious to see, is there sit and stare policies, is there principal decision, or where is that conversation happening? Thanks.
Thanks, Adam. Anyone else wish to speak at this time? If not, thanks, and we'll move on to students. And LCS, yes. Hey.
Hi. So this week, these past 2 weeks at LACS were very difficult. We had a couple struggles. The main one was that a community member, Layla, passed away. She was diagnosed with a brain tumor in 2012 and died blissfully on March 2nd. She was a student of life. She really has been living life to the fullest since her diagnosis, and she inspired many, including those who never met her. In this time since the diagnosis and since her passing, Layla have been comforted by the village that surrounds and supports them on this journey. Rest in peace and power, Layla, and she leaves these words with us: live life like Layla. Additionally, the week after we found out this information, a new app was put in the App Store called Burnbook. Burnbook was an app that you could post anonymously about your community, specifically schools. I don't think that it affected the IHS community as it did the LACS community. the LACS community saw a lot of negativity on that app because there was anonymous posting required, and there was a lot of cyberbullying going on and a lot of very serious things that really upset a lot of the community. On Thursday, when this app really took off, several older students tried to turn it around by posting all positive messages, and that worked for about a day before it went back to the negativity. After a student started talking about suicide on the app, the administrators got involved. I don't think the app is as active anymore. I know that it was removed from the App Store for anyone who hadn't already downloaded it, but that's not very helpful because the people who had already downloaded it were the ones who were posting the terrible things. So on Monday, we had an all-school meeting to discuss it, which Dr. Brown and some other people attended. And as a school, we discussed why our community was reacting like this, especially in light of Layla's death, and tried to create a more positive outcome rather than this terrible bullying that was happening, especially since we try to pride ourselves as a community school. So we're still working towards being positive, we're still working towards being caring and kind to each other, no matter who's watching. And as a school, we're really, I think, starting to work towards that. But it has been a difficult past couple of weeks, and we're trying to come out on the other end in a more positive light. So.
Thank you. Ithaca High.
Sure. So February 28th was the winter formal from 8 to 11 p.m. With about 245 tickets sold for an overall profit of about $2,000. The Lake Watchin was pretty jamming. The money made will go to the senior office for any of their future activities that they hope to plan. And the IHS Cast and Pit Orchestra have been preparing relentlessly after school and during the weekend to present the musical Catch Me If You Can. Flock over to Culp Auditorium from March 20th to 22nd to catch a show.
Now, last Friday and Saturday at 7 p.m. we had a cabaret night, which, as you know, is primarily a fundraiser for the orchestra. Tickets were $5 and refreshments were available. Entertaining comedic and musical performance by IHS students, which I think were thoroughly enjoyed. Also, this past Friday and Saturday, we had our IHS Model UN team travel to St. John Fisher in Rochester to compete in the annual UNAR conference there. The club won numerous awards. It was one of the best showings to date, with about 2/3 of the delegation receiving Best Delegate, Outstanding Delegate, and Honorable Mentions. And we congratulate them on such a successful conference.
As the weather has been warming up, if you can call 40 degrees warm, spring sports athletes have been up and running. Lacrosse, track, and boys tennis are out on the fields and preparing for the season. And last week on Wednesday, in Culp Auditorium, there was our Music in Our Schools concert. The entire Ithaca band program, extending from 6th grade all the way to the high school, performed from Ithaca High School, Boynton, and DeWitt. The final portion of the concert was a collaborative piece between IHS Concert Band and the 7th and 8th graders from both junior high schools. And overall, the concert was a big success and a great opportunity for younger students to be inspired to continue playing their instrument. And this month, there's a Link Crew sponsored event in March Madness. For those who don't know, March Madness is a national basketball tournament where people create brackets predicting who they think will win each game. And on Monday, March 16th, students and staff will have the opportunity to build their own brackets and turn them in. And classes will have different colored paper for their brackets. Brackets will be hung in the cafeteria as a spectrum. And throughout the month, Link Crew leaders will be checking all the brackets with NCAA standards to decide the winner by the end of the event. And the winner will win baked goods for his or her class. And as IHS tries to defy the odds and see how accurate a bracket they can create, we hope to promote the school spirit with this event.
Picture it. Students from every guild and every group gathering to learn about social justice. In this world, there's a lot of misunderstanding. So we are gathering, as goes for the tradition of hosting these lectures during Social Justice Week. Inspiring lectures by our LGBTIQA community, informative presentations about migrant workers from a staff member who worked directly with Cesar Chavez and several others, including students and other community stakeholders. Packing York Lecture Hall to learn. There will be an event Thursday for a concert mission. A local band called the Blind Spots will be performing. Proceeds go to charity. And by the way, this whole entire week, organizing all the lectures and the events is student-initiated, student-run. That's very important. And the most passionate ones about social justice, obviously organized students, so that's special. 2 Sundays ago, the IPEI Spelling Bee took place. We are very proud of our PTA, not only winning, but for all they do, showing us their support all the time, students and staff, and showing their and well, I won't comment on the Board of Education or the central office teams, but it was a different situation. But ultimately, as much as we joke for weeks about this, and possibly even months, it's $23,000 some odd was raised, all for teacher grants, teachers helping students. So this is really all for our schools, all for our teachers, all for our students. That's the important part, and we're very proud of the IHS team for pulling through and winning. Okay, our IHS library sees 100 kids a day, eating lunch in there, reading, doing homework, socializing, and on Friday we played games. Now, speaking of teacher grants, IHS librarian Armin Hurek received a $250 red and gold grant to buy new games. It's kind of getting out of the checkers and chess traditional games and going into the fantastical nature of these sci-fi games like Dungeons and Dragons and Settlers of Catan. And other ones, about almost a dozen games. So that's nice. Nice to have fun on Fridays with a big selection of games. And that concludes our report for this evening.
Thanks, Ithaca High. Any comments? Well, Jay.
So I'm
lifted an eyebrow first, so go ahead.
I think that something like this is great. This letter that came from the board and West Jenny. I'd be happy to sign something similar from our board. And that President of the Teachers Association on here as well, and the superintendent. And anyway, if someone wanted to put it together.
You'll sign it, though. Okay, thank you, Jay. Brad, go ahead.
Just to echo a few things, the IPEI Spelling Bee was a lot of fun. We had 300 people there. It was a great time. I did get to go to the combined band concert. Had a great time, and you can't believe what 230 pieces together sounds like. It's pretty full sound when they had the 2 middle schools and the high school band up there together. Pretty cool to see, an experience for all of them to be in a group that large performing together. For the 19th, we're trying to get a bus together. Is that? Are we going to be okay with that?
Yeah, I think we
are.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know someone's working on it. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So-
What would we plan to do? Leave here at 6 for the 6:30?
Man, have you talked to Jim about where we are with that bus?
I think it's on Jim's radar, but I don't have an update
Okay,
as far
we
as
can
the bus.
provide, we'll get them.
Can we get that? Yeah, because that way any students who want to ride could go up at the high school. Others who wanted to share the ride and could go up as well.
Is there definitely going to be a bus?
Yeah. So,
Save
want
on
to make
parking.
sure, save on the parking, right? Do that.
Green initiative.
But take a good group to that next Thursday. So that'll be great, and I appreciate the group who's putting that together and hosting it. That'll be great.
Anything else? Chris? Elder, go ahead.
Just wanted to thank Iana for the kind words about Layla. She was, I mean, this is a big district. We experience loss, unfortunately. But this was a special child in a special circumstance who did some very special things. So thank you to her mom, Julia. Our sympathies for your loss. There will be a celebration, as far as I understand, about this young lady's life this summer. And hopefully there'll be more out of her spirit. So thank you. She was one of the best kids I've ever known in this district. So she will be missed.
Thanks, Eldred. Any Chris, you good?
No, I can't. To echo Eldred's sentiment about Layla, and not to belabor this, she will be missed. But I also appreciate you sharing the burn book information, because oftentimes those things don't get known, and I actually commend LACS for recovering and taking action. So, thank you.
Very good. Well, if nothing else, we'll move on to the consent.
I'll move the consent.
I'll second.
Second by Chris. It is short.
Merciful.
So, any questions? Can't have too many. All in favor? It's everybody. Danielle. Everybody who's not here. So, Dr. Brown.
Yes. Thank you for the opportunity.
Good to see you, Dr. Brown.
Good to see you all also. I'm looking forward to being. I'm hoping adults can be a part of the tournament challenges. Can adults? Is it just kids, or can adults put their brackets in?
The link crew?
Yeah, the link crew.
Yeah, staff and students.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that. Thank you.
Put this up for special embarrassment.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun.
There's no betting involved, Dr. Brown. There's no betting involved, no wagering involved here, correct? Okay, go ahead. Sorry, Dr.
A few items. First, thank you for sharing information about the upcoming public forum. And yes, we'll work to get a bus. I am very supportive of this opportunity. I've been on the phone with Ms. Savage all week, speaking about our participation in this opportunity. Just to be clear, I won't be at this opportunity, but it won't be because I'm not advocating for young people and school boards here locally. I'll be on the road traveling to do the same thing somewhere else where I was invited to speak of our district and others. So Brad Granger and I will be tag teaming. Yes. He will be there to speak in favor for us, in support of us, but also hopefully joining me the next day as at the other event as well. Secondly, I heard the word opt-out, and that's a word that I hear more often than engagement nowadays. But I would love for Dr. Landau to speak just briefly about how we are approaching the opt-out movement here.
Speaking from the crowd tonight, we don't have a policy. What we do have regarding this is a practice, best practice we like to think, but our practice involves communication between the principal and concerned parent. The process usually starts with something in writing from the parent to the principal, and we also didn't require it, but we also asked for a meeting between the principal and the family to have a conversation about it. And then you hear this phrase, sit and stare. We had no child sit and stare if they were opting out of the test. They instead were in a different classroom or room in the school where they were reading or doing other quiet activities. I think last year we had I don't know the exact number, but it was somewhere between 15 and 20 students did this option from 3rd grade through 8th grade. And so that's all I have to say about that. So thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
And finally, it's already been talked about a beautiful soul that we lost at LACS. We experienced another loss a few hours ago, an educator who meant much to our organization. We experienced many losses over the past few weeks and months here. And as I found myself complaining about how cold it is at times, I often struggle. We have folks who are struggling in other ways here too. So you just keep the educators and young people in your thoughts and prayers who aren't with us, and who have given so much to the collective wisdom and knowledge of our community. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Dr. Brown. And we will move right into school district business, and you will have our annual visit and presentation from administration. So welcome.
Thank you for having us. Jeff Madison, District Superintendent of TST BOE. This is our Assistant Superintendent, Dave Parsons, for Management Services. I also have with us Diane Hessler, our Director of External Programs. External programs is any program not happening on campus, with the exception of summer school. Tony DeLucci, Director of CTE. David Barr, Director of Supplemental Education. And Barry Durkle, our Assistant Superintendent for Instruction. So they're here in case you have any questions about their program. But we'll get right started and get into it in honor of your time. So BOCES is a cooperative. That's why it's called the Board of Cooperative Educational Services. We are basically an extension of all of our local school districts. Our goal is to provide high-quality services that are economical and efficient that complement your educational programs. We offer specialized educational opportunities, leadership for educational initiatives, shared services, and cross-contracts with other BOCES. Contracts with other BOCES if we are not offering it in our region. Our specialized educational services are those instructional services that are taking place up on our campus. We have exceptional education programs, alternative education programs, and career and technical education programs, and you have students from your district in all three of them. We also have off-campus 2 new visions on career and technical education programs. For leadership for current educational initiatives, we're focusing on obviously educational excellence with the education reform agenda. Like all the schools in the region, we support you in your work. The Dignity for All Students Act, and we have youth development specialists in most of our schools in the region. Everyone's purchasing parts of that services, and they do training for students, staff, and administration. Response to intervention, inclusive education, we have folks that are totally dedicated to those areas, going into school districts, doing training, also going and receiving training at the state level and bringing it back and duplicating it in the region. Shared services, you can see our many shared services. Much of what BOCES does, half or more than half of what we do is really behind the scenes type stuff, supporting the school district, facilitating shared school district. They're not the upfront instructional pieces. A lot of people don't know all those other things that we do, but that's a list of some of the other things that we are doing. The only one that will go away is we're getting out of the fingerprinting business because the state ed department has now given that to a vendor. Cross contracts will facilitate annual service, state aid management, computer hardware, connectivity, and collective bidding, amongst others. A lot of times we'll have a district say, we'd like to see this, we heard about it at this place, and we say, well, we're not going to start a brand new one, we'll help you get that from the other BOCES. So that's kind of how that works. You can see that we also have facilitated grant procurement the past year, that we, this past year, have signed on, and the other components, $1.6 million worth of grants that have come into this region. A large grant in this that funds adult education. So that is one we annually will, as long as we continue to see students and we get to bill against that for the number. A lot of that happens downtown in Ithaca here. One of the ones was the Teaching is the Core grant that all of our school districts jumped on board with. It was a competitive grant with the state. It was a grant to look at assessment practices in our entire region. And each school district has its own little twist on how they're using that grant. It's being facilitated by BOCES, but the entire group gets together to discuss assessment practices and undergoing some training. So that's one that came to our region, that the entire region did together, that directly impacts your classroom. And one reason I highlight that is there is a lot of talk about how are we assessing students. What about standardized tests? That's happening in the classroom with assessment. But we are working in our region about looking at assessment practices differently. I'm going to turn this part over to Dave Parsons.
This particular slide is, if district, we put one in for each district, gives you kind of a snapshot of what Ithaca is at TST BOCES. The top number is the resident weighted average daily attendance, or WADA. In the state, it's about 2 years old. It's the number of students that the state says the average daily attendance here at Ithaca. That percentage as a total of TST BOCES represents about a little over 40% of TST BOCES. Your aid ratio for this year is about 43% for those things that are aidable. Ithaca is the one that's unique. There's a regular aid ratio, and there's also another one called millage. And we do that calculation to see which one is better, and normally millage is better. So Ithaca is the only one that falls into that case, and we do those calculations for you. Students in the current year is about 97. We bill on a 3-year rolling average in order to eliminate those spikes from up and down in enrollments. So the average for next year, or the current average now is 99. Projected for next year is 106. That could be some from the number of students you plan on sending, and or the spikes that were behind coming. Number of students in our exceptional ed program is a little just shy of 51. We don't cut students in half, but we do bill our exceptional by FTE. So we bill day in to day out. So we try to keep that actually to the actual costs that are coming through, instead of buying a slot, and if you don't send a student, you pay for it. Number of students in our ed program, which is now housed up on our campus, is just shy of 41. The current contract that Ithaca participates in is about $13.5 million, and that represents about 34% of TST BOCES. So the bottom percentage and the one that's the Arwada gives you kind of an idea of your size versus how much you purchase. And there's not a right or wrong, it just kind of gives you a feel for that. As the districts get bigger, we tend to see the amount of services purchased is reduced because you're big enough to do things on your own. So that's not an uncommon situation where you purchase actually a little less than your size. And by all means, if there's a question, stop me, or I'll just ramble along. This is the slide that usually gets some eyebrows this year anyways. We're at just shy of a 10% increase this year in our budgets. And most people say, holy crap, 10%. And as a sales service organization, an increase like that is not a bad thing, because that represents districts asking us to do more things. If we were strictly trying to do the same as we did last year and it went up 10%, that'd be a problem. But that does represent a huge increase in requests from our districts. That's about $3.7 million. And the four things on the changers that are driving that increase. Further along in the presentation, actually, Dr. Madison will go into each one of those, and you'll see where those numbers and percentages come from. Our administrative budget is the one that we spend a little bit of time on, because you, as Board of Educations in each of our districts, get a chance to vote on our administrative budget. And it works just like the budget in your district. Your taxpayers vote on it, and you're locked in not spending one nickel more than that. And that's the way our administrative budget works. You folks vote on it, and we can't spend one nickel more than that. So we spend a little time with this one. Salaries, you can see, are up a little bit, not a lot. We were able to keep that in check. We had a few people retire, and we did not replace them. So we've been able to get a little bit more efficient with that. The supplies, equipment, so on and so forth, you'll see there's some changes in those. But there again, we try to keep those in line as much as possible. The one that I do call out of this whole thing, and I'm sure people over time get sick of hearing, retiree benefits. For anybody that retires at TST BOCES has to be paid any retirement benefit that they're entitled to has to come out of our by regs of SED. So that is a third of our budget. We actually, as much as I hate to say it, are probably a little on the fortunate side that it's only a third. Some of my counterparts, when I talk to them, they're running half to 60% of their administrative budget is the retiree line. So I know that's a big number, but when I'm starting to look at some of the other districts around, we're pretty good shape with that one. If you actually, it's a 3.78 increase in the expenditures. If you pull the increase of that retiree line out of that, it's about a 1.14 in the administrative budget. So we try to pull that one out so that everybody sees where that is and what we do have a lot of control over. I left the interest and the miscellaneous revenues alone. I don't see interest changing a whole lot for next year. If somebody knows better, please tell me. But I don't see it changing a whole lot. So when we get all done with that, we're looking at about a 3.86% increase to our districts in our administrative budget. Any questions with that one? Because that's the one you get to vote on. All right. Salaries and benefits, we are in negotiations. We will be this probably right shortly with our 2 bargaining units that are up. We have 1 bargaining unit that is not up yet. So I don't. We did budget some numbers, but we don't publish those. For next year, we're looking at about a 7% in our insurance increase, along with 6 new retirees, and that line itself represents about 0.6 of our total budget. Looking at a little reprieve on the retirement, which is long overdue and certainly welcomed. Between the retirement and the health, they're going to offset each other. The retirement's going to go down about 6% of our budget, which is about 0.82 of our total budget. So we're certainly looking forward to that relief. And the other benefits that we do offer represents a small piece, about a 0.13 of our total budgets. Our capital budget is the same as it was last year, about $308,000. There's 2 things in that. One is the EPC, which we've got about 9.5 years, I'd have to look for sure, left in those payments. And the other thing is we rent the Presbyterian Church, but the adult ed actually pays us back for that. So what the local district pays for is only the EPC. So that's pretty steady ever since. Reserve accounts, BOCES cannot have an unappropriated fund balance to carry from year to year. Whatever we don't spend by the end of June has to go back in the refunds to our districts in the fall. So we technically start our budgets over every year with a zero budget. We do have some, in the next one, yeah, there we go. The reserve accounts that we do have and can have are listed there. The unemployment, we are self-funded. A couple of 3 years, about 5 years ago, I guess it was, we took a hit when the Even Start program went away, but we've been able to get ourselves back up to a reasonable funding. The insurance and flex reserves that we have, you see those there. And the one that we started last spring was an ERS retirement. We felt it was time to start putting some money aside for that, because we know that the pendulum is going to go the other way at some point. And like I said earlier, our biggest thing is to try to make those peaks and valleys as minimal as possible, and that's a way we can help offset that when that does swing the other way.
So these are our budgets. This is where you'll see that add up that delta to the 10% of the BOCES budget. And these are all choices by our school districts asking us to do certain services, and most of them are shared services between the school districts. You can see a large delta in the itinerants, which is good news. It means school districts are sharing personnel, and they're running that through BOCES, so they're generating aid and having less expense on their personnel. Instructional services, there's a couple programs at the Exceptional Education Center in the Smith School, and that's why that's up about 4%. Non-instructional support, that 10% is primarily through some advances in the CBO, but also like a doubling in our service with the energy management districts from outside of our region now that are all over that service now. I think probably by the end of this year, if what we think is going to happen happens, we will have had 4 additional school districts just since the fall. So that one's taking cross contracts is technology. School districts are purchasing through the Regional Information Center. BOCES is facilitating that contract. The interesting thing about this budget here, the program budget, is that all of the personnel that's associated with that budget, when they retire, that's how they end up in the administrative budget. So we can't charge that back to the program because of state regs, like Dave said. So the odd thing that can happen is you can be paying some charges in the administrative budget for a retiree from a program you never purchased. So we would have loved to see it differently, but that's why administrators usually have a delta in it, because all retirees from the other 90% of what we do have to go into the less than 10% administrative budget. So that's how that happens. Our expanding services, expanding the CBO, shared time, distance learning, shared treasurer, instructional technology support, things that we're doubling our instructional technology support this year, which is nice. It's moving in the right direction. When we're looking at shared human resources, some additional shared transportation, additional shared personnel. We have begun interviewing for a shared HVAC person to be run through our energy management service. All of our districts have personnel that need training in that area, and we also can support in that area. We're looking at adding an auditorium tech. We've had requests from districts that have all this high-tech equipment in the auditoriums, and the real smart kid that learns how to use it when it first comes on does this thing. He graduates, or she graduates, and the tech equipment. So we're trying to get some consulting services going there, expanding our tech integration, and we also have some pretty talented people in our Smith School with assistive technology. We're beginning to support school districts with assistive technology with their special needs students. By law, our school districts have to vote on the BOCES budget between April 16th and April 30th. There's also 3 BOCES board positions up for Groton, Lansing, and Newfield that have to be voted on, and that vote will happen Wednesday, April 22nd. And that's all we have to say. If you have questions, we're glad to answer.
Go.
So I was wondering if we would be able to get like a copy of this presentation for our government class.
Sure.
It's actually available at the district website on the Board of Education page. It's a link public.
But there's hard.
Go ahead, just couple down to them. Okay, here you go. But they also are on the website. They're posted up here.
Daniel, were you finished? Right, it's on the website. So kids are very good at going on websites. Connor and then
The 40.3 RWADA, is that exceptional ed community school and CSC?
Let's see which one you're doing.
This the percentage?
This, the percent.
Yes.
Where the number comes from?
That is, if you take our total size of our BOCES and divide that into the total size of Ithaca, Ithaca represents 40% of TST BOCES.
So all the students of the region divided by the students in Ithaca. And you're 40% of all the students in our TST BOCES region.
Is that the largest percent?
It is.
Elder.
Of the 3.7 million in increased demand, is there any particular area that stands out? What are we asking you to do more of?
Technology is the biggest piece of that.
Technology is the biggest one.
Absolutely, it's 30-some% of that increase.
What does that mean, technology?
Devices.
Computers,
equipment?
Support,
Equipment, schools, some support.
Equipment through you.
Yeah.
or service, or anything that's in technology.
The one good news piece that I wanted to make sure I pointed out to you legislation-wise is both one House budgets came out in the past 2 days. The Assembly and the Senate both included a raise in the cap on teacher salaries through CTE from $30,000 to $34,000. They're going proposal to gradually raise it all the way up to 100% of a teacher's salary over a 5-year period. So that was good news that it appeared in both budgets. We've been advocating for that for quite some time, especially to help multiple pathways, and keep our fingers crossed that in the plan will remain and they'll follow through with that 5-year phasing.
Not budget, but the next few years for both. We see, our district, good example of, we're going to a few different BOCES because they have expertise in one area or the other, or you're seeing more of a demand in certain areas for what you do. Do you see yourselves, do you have to become more specialized to offer an outstanding program in one area to drive your growth,
We're starting
your budget?
to see more and more BOCES accepting that philosophy of we're not going to offer everything our neighbor does. If we can facilitate our districts getting what is offered in the neighboring BOCES, we shouldn't have duplication and have everybody have multiple layers of personnel. Our joint management team, which is our region of the mid-state, which is OCM BOCES, Cuba, Onondaga, and Oswego, we kind of have a gentleman's agreement that we will not do that. We send people those directions to make sure all the students in that region have equity money to opportunity and access the same stuff. Our big project is our online learning project. All students in that region get access to those courses if their school district purchases them. Got 140 some odd students in those courses right now from all over that region, as far north as Oswego and as far south as Canada.
The energy management is a good example of TST.
Right.
We're one of the few that do that, and other ones are saying, why do we want to mimic that or try to build it ourselves if we can cross contract with TST? So that's a real example. Bus driver training, RJMT, instead of running their own, works with us. So it's vice versa. There's no sense of all of us doing everything.
Sure.
When somebody can be specialized and cross contract and get it done. Yep.
And we're doing, well, we're doing our EPC now, but you've already done that.
Yeah, we've actually done 2.
Right, you've done 2, and so it's been very useful for us to tap into your skills
in the energy management,
as we've been through. Well, it's been a couple of years now, I suppose,
right,
but
yeah.
just trying to get the pool fixed, Connor. I mean, come on, it's been years. But Elder, go ahead.
Rumor on the street trying to increase your capacity for professional development.
What do you think, Barry? You think that's a good idea to increase our capacity for professional development?
Absolutely, I'm all for it. Whatever we can do to support the students.
We have a board goal.
Yeah.
On the go-to place for professional development. So that is certainly something we're working on.
Not just in the region, to be the place that anybody would choose for professional development. Our goal.
And, well, just to the nuts and bolts, but the vote is taking place.
Right.
So just to point out, we don't have the flexibility to take a vote on our regular board meeting on that Tuesday. We do have to have a special meeting, so publicly we have to announce, okay, we're meeting on Wednesday, April 22nd. We may do other business at that point, but typically it's an off day, and we vote specifically on the BOCES budget. Just to, it's separated from everything else that we do for the most part. Jack, go ahead.
I want to thank Jeff and his coworkers for coming to talk in specific about the program and budget. But Jeff, I wonder if you could tell the board what I was glad to hear about last Friday at our meeting, which is about how, and this isn't about the program and budget, but it's about what BOCES is doing with other governmental bodies. And I didn't give Jeff a heads up on this, but he's up to the task to tell us about what the BOCES, our BOCES, is doing and has done. And so I think it'd be great if you could tell us a little bit about that.
We've made a connection with the Tompkins County Council on Governments, and we convened as many municipalities as we could through that organization to talk about shared services, efficiencies, and effectiveness. Kate Supran, mayor of Hugo Heights, is the chair of that group this year. And we worked through Joe Mariana to get that piece together. And over 20 municipalities showed up from every level of government. Both and every single one of our school districts was represented. Started out as an initial, let's get together, see if we can help find some savings to help them get to their 1% for the rebate from the governor's budget from last year. But what it grew into in our planning conversations was, you know what, there's other conversations we should have. It shouldn't be just about how do we save money, but government should work. And so let's talk about how to do things more effectively and more efficiently, get rid of some layers, some things that we could do for municipalities, things municipalities may be able to do for us. Turned into a pretty broad conversation about the BOCES model so they could understand how schools are sharing through the BOCES model. Turned into a discussion of how could a BOCES model for municipalities be created. And so there were conversations between school districts, municipalities for ideas, but also just taking that idea of that kind of regional model for just the municipalities. So we've got some other meetings scheduled. Once we had a big brainstorming session, we decided to have a series of topical meetings to try to get some partners together to glean some savings and some efficiencies. And even if it might cost a little more to do a few things better for some municipalities and serve our communities better, we just felt it was a good thing to do to get together and have those conversations. We're pretty excited about what the potential is in our region.
Is the state offering any significant grant opportunities for you guys to take advantage of to do that kind of planning, or is this in addition to everything?
Doing it all because we thought that we're doing it with ourselves for free, our own time. So, but we would definitely, if we find some efficiencies like that, hey, we'll start going out for the grants. I think, especially this wants to see municipalities working together. We might be able to find some seed money or whatever to get a few things done.
There are efficiency grants out there. Once you've recognized or decide on something you can do. I did that when we started the central business office. Out there, if you've got something that you want to do, then you can go after that money and get it in order to implement it. So they're called implementation grants.
Last Friday, right after that, because of Lansing bringing it to the table, all those municipalities were invited to the solar meeting for the large solar farm that they were considering over in the Huga
power plant
region. Just to have a conversation about, can we do something big in the region? And so, even though that was worked through our energy management service with our school districts and Lansing in the town, everyone got invited. Some people came to get some information. You never know what that can turn into. So, little bits and pieces, small steps, but those are the right conversations to be having.
And representatives, I'm not sure you mentioned, but the business officers and whatnot from the different districts were there.
Yes.
So,
business officials and superintendents were present, and we had villages, towns, city, county, and school districts all represented.
Great. Tremendous. Anything else? Jeff, Dave, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
No, thank you. And we won't shift gears too much because we're going to go right into other budgets, our budget. Because 'tis the season, Dr. Brown. Oh no, we love the stuff. I like this. What was that? I'm not even trying to fill, Dr. Brown. I'm just waiting.
Thank you.
Pulling it together.
No, it's great if you have it there. That's fantastic. Do you mind?
Amanda, good to see you again, and we're back to talk about budget.
I'm back again.
Another part of the budget.
Another part of the budget. As we are getting closer in 2 weeks from now, we'll be proposing hopefully our line item budget, so then that way the board will either can vote at that point or continue on for another conversation April 14th. Just a reminder, we're moving along with the budget calendar that has been on our website, has been approved, and this is just another step, another phase, and I promised you last time that I was here that we spoke about revenue, and we'll review that as well, but we're also then going to talk a little bit about the budget sort of from a higher level vantage point, and using the audit report that we've been showing each meeting for those categories. And essentially what we do is at this moment in time, so again, this is March 10th, at this moment in time, what we believe perhaps the highest level of that grouping of funds would need to be allocated to budget. There will be, and I will a gap that's going to be identified as well this evening in terms of what we're bringing in terms of revenue, and then what we anticipate the expenditures at this moment in time to be. Some next steps of what we'll be doing in the next 2 weeks so that we could try to, decrease that gap between revenue and expenditure. And then also get some guidance from the board as well as to other steps that you'd like us to be taking, some guidance around tax levy, some guidance around reserve management. And so that's essentially what we'll be doing for the next 15 minutes together. So Danielle, I hope if you don't mind, we can go to the next slide. As I said, I'm going to start with a review of revenue. There is one update to the slide, and I just want to go through this for folks. Again, this the first column, the 2014-15, is what was budgeted from last year, or this current fiscal year that we're living in. The 15-16 is the year that we're moving forward into. And again, those are all estimations of what we think we'll be getting in terms of state aid. We agreed last meeting that we'd be going with the actual amounts that we're locking in on that. And the other revenue is, that is the local tax levy, that is the up to the tax cap, so that is the maximum amount. And again, just for a review, we don't have to, take it all the way up to the $82,282,867. If we so choose as the board, that would mean that if we did go up to that tax levy, that would require just a simple majority vote. Anything above that amount, we'd have to go out for a supermajority, which we experienced last year, and that was 60% of the voters or more have to approve that. So again, that's that cap that we're living under. The next line there is that total revenue. So that's the actualized revenue, the real revenue that we're going to, not including fund balance, not including reserve. So we're looking at an increase of about 1.64%, $1.7 million from the current year that we're living in until next year's budgeted amounts. And then we also had some good news last time that the fund balance that we had budgeted to balance the budget in the current year that we're living in, we're assuming that as long as barring any emergencies, we will be able to carry that again forward to next year to be able to balance the budget. And again, that's sort of our savings goal at the end of every year. We hope we'll continue to carry that forward to be able to balance the budget. The reserves, I gave you a chart last time. I don't have that with me, but that's also documents, and you can take a look at our status of reserves. We've all been talking about trying to manage those very well. We have gone to the reserves in the past few years to be able to help to balance the budget. And again, I think Dave also spoke to that in the BOCES budget. Those are those times when you try to mitigate all the factors that are coming your way, and you all know what those are, to try to help alleviate some of the barriers. And then finally, the new line there is the appropriated capital reserves. Having, again, as you all know, we vet these all the way through in the process with our fiscal advisors and our state aid request R3 BOCES, another cost contracted service. This we realized was actually an appropriated reserve amount from the capital reserve for specific projects, specifically the NOC in this case, the Network Operations Center. And so this is earmarked dollars that would actually needs to be allocated into the general fund and then be used for that purpose, which is part of the expenditure, so that will be a wash essentially. But it is an additional $120 that can be added to the revenue amount to give us a total revenue at this point in time. If we went to the tax levy and we didn't leverage any reserves, to $114,332,363. Fair enough for revenue? Great. So the next two slides are simply review. Remember, again, our goal is a well that is not bottomless, right? And so that we need to be able to manage that, and we're hoping that state factors will come our way. We're looking at our levy amounts, and we're trying to drive down our expenditure costs, which is now the top line. We'd like that to be actually the line below the blue. The blue line is our revenue. That represents what we're living in right now. The $113 million, that top red square there, is what the voters approved as maximum expenditure. All right? And we already know that $2 million of that in fund balance will be carried forward. So we will not be spending the maximum amount that the voters told us that we are allowed to spend. So again, we're trying to move those two lines together as we move forward. What you will see for the budget that I'm going to propose to you, this is again just a preliminary proposed amounts per the audit report, which is the next slide. You will see that there will be still a gap. There will still be a gap between that red line above and the blue line below. And so our work in the next 2 weeks then is to try to either decrease that gap or get to tell us other mitigating factors for that. Fair enough? So again, the audit report is the next slide. And so what I've pulled together for you is a series of slides that go along with those expenditures. There's about 12 different categories of expenditures to give you the total proposed expenditures that we think at this moment in time we will have going into. And so they'll be grouped in terms of Board of Ed administration all the way down through interfund. And I'll try to give a broad description of those, and if I know of some changes, I'll try to talk very broadly about that. In 2 weeks from now, we'll get into the line items, so specific questions, if you have them, and you want me to prepare them, or if you want to save them up for next time, both are appropriate, okay? So the first slide is the Board of Education slide, and this is all of the costs for the Board of Education, the clerk, the election costs, and as you can see, there's a very slim change and increase, and that's just simply because of the election costs go up every year, and there are changes per contracts that we need to address.
And our salaries have remained flat.
Don't make that joke. We got too many emails the last time we joked about doubling our
I forgot
pay.
about that.
Yes. Ed costs are for a district clerk, and all of the supplies and election costs that go with it. And there's not the fine people in front of you.
Unpaid volunteers, yes.
That's right. Administration includes the Office of the Superintendent, the Business Office, the Office of Human Resources or Human Capital. As you can see there, it's quite a large budget. It includes a lot of elements. A lot of the increases that you're going to see, and again, it's just about a 4% increase in administration, but it really is about the increased cost for auditing services. That has gone up. The Central Business Office, we've increased the services. As you remember, last year we no longer have an internal treasurer. We've actually had treasury services now through BOCES to leverage treasurer and deputy treasurer. So that actually is an enhancement of the treasurer's service, but the aid mitigates that increase. So understand that again, that's a movement to BOCES, so that's what you're seeing. And the tax collection also goes up each year in terms of the cost for the banks and for that.
Last tax collection with BOCES yet?
We have not. Our tax collector, I am actually the tax collector here, and we also have Carolyn in my office, who's also fantastic work right now. And so right now, the cost didn't seem to be logical to go over. It would be, again, you saw our percentage to pay of that until more districts sort of buy in. We've been sort of balancing that to say I don't think that that's the right time yet to do that.
And we see the state aid from the business office and central business office. We won't see that till next.
That is correct.
Year.
So let me explain a little bit for those that don't know how aid works, especially for BOCES aid. BOCES aid, it's essentially you purchase services at essentially a full price. And then based on either formula or what Dave was talking about, based on a percentage of their salary, so they've capped it at like $30,000 first person's salary, they're trying to inch that up, we get monies back. So it's essentially you go in, you buy something, and then you get a rebate back in the form of state aid. You also get a BOCES rebate, a real rebate on anything. It's like a return on your monies that you don't use. So for example, if there's a gap in service and there's salary that wasn't expended, there might be a program that we thought we were going to need, but then we might have decreased, we actually get that money back from a BOCES. So they hold the money and give that back to us at the end of the year. Or we leverage state aid on those dollars.
Thank you.
So instruction. Largest part of our budget, and as you can see, it includes many things. This typically, if you look at the audit chart, this costs rise because it's just so comprehensive. And it will fluctuate again based on, as contracts are actually negotiated, those can change. It includes the administration and academic office, all of the principals, all of the instructional and professional staff, including the aides and assistants, libraries, guidance, as you can see, athletics, all of the BOCES instructional programs, as well as it used to be the instructional technology that we in-housed in the district. So in years past, you would have seen a larger increase in terms of percentage and also dollar change for this portion of the budget if you look at the audit report. But because we actually, again, are leveraging state aid by using OCM BOCES for the technology service, the change would have been greater because that would have been included. The internal general fund technology dollars would have been shown an increase here. That actually now has been moved, and you're going to see a larger increase in the data management line, which includes the BOCES. But understand that that actually will balance out. That would have been an increase we would have seen here. And the next slide will show that. This is not in order per your audit report, but we thought that it was logical to put it next since they go together. So again, this includes the technology, staff, equipment, and all of the leases, including copiers and including computers and everything. And it also includes the fact that we did utilize the OCM CineRIC to provide our technology services. So we're maximizing our BOCES aid by doing that. Okay? Community services, very simple. Now, I want to speak to this. I know that there's been some questions about pool supervision. This is not a decrease in terms of the number of staff. This is just that because of a lot of the work that we're going to be doing with EPC, we anticipate that it's not going to have as much management for the controls and the units that are around the pool, which actually was overtime a lot of time. So we actually believe that we can, still manage the pool, and it's actually through our custodial staff that do this. And so that's why there's a decrease. But again, we're talking about $2,000 in the grand scheme of probably $114 million, right? Transportation. Transportation is all of the staff, the utilities, the custodial, the tires, the insurance for those specific buses, and the charter fees. And Jim believes a lot of the decreases either coming from, he's hoping to have a full staff that'll cut down on some of the overtime. The gas and the utilities have also, those costs have gone down. Operations and maintenance. So this is again another one just like the instructional budget and data management budget. The operations and maintenance budget, you're going to see a decrease here, mainly because of every year we look at ways that we code our costs. And so you will see an increase actually in the inter-fund transfer because we've actually recoded operation and maintenance costs that are related to capital. And so you'll see an increase in that in the inter-fund transfer, but a decrease here. Overall, though, the operations and maintenance budget totally has gone down, mainly again because we're watching overtime. We're trying to have fully staffed programs so that we don't have to have the overtime, and also we've anticipated some decreases in our utility costs as well. Okay. Employee benefits. Dave already spoke to this. So the increases of health insurance were mitigated by the employee retirement system and TRS. And so that's why you're almost seeing a relatively flat year-to-year budget for employee benefits, and includes everything in terms of retirement, Social Security, health, dental, unemployment, and workers' comp.
Question about retirement. Can we surmise, Amanda, that finally the losses of our employees' expectations of their retirement are finally being shrunk and recouped from? Is that what's happening?
Say that again.
Are the retirement funds that our employees invested in finally beginning to recoup the losses from 08?
Right. Well, I mean, they don't invest. They have no. None of the employees do any investing themselves. The answer is yes. The are doing better now and have made up some of those losses. It's still a large contribution. What's the
Teachers are still the average is just above 13%. It's 13.25%.
And ERS
is still about the 24. The average for the tiers, remember, the tiers is about 24%.
So this looks like a trend that's going to continue in this vein, or can
no, so Dave just spoke to this as well, right? These are the numbers that you really, I mean, you can probably watch the market, you can probably watch the trends over the course of time, but to try to have a crystal ball over the course of the next 5 years, that is really difficult.
And remember, they don't move the same. ERS is a 3-year trailing average, and TRS is a 5-year trailing average. So they don't even move the same.
3-year, you'll
just
get
to make your predictions simpler, they don't even move together.
3 years will get quicker.
It's a big hole, though. I mean, this at least seems like there's a ladder in the hole.
Well, looking at flat looks better than up.
Oh, it's been going up millions per year.
Exactly.
Let's remember, we're showing a benefit at $32 million.
Yeah.
It's more than 25% of our budget. Let's be clear. More than 25% of our total budget is in benefits.
And Amanda, that number, like in 2000, the percentage of the budget was.
Oh heavens!
I mean, it was maybe 7%.
I look back at that.
I have the smaller slides, so I don't think my glasses are powerful. And I haven't committed to memory.
No, I mean, it's tens of millions of dollars more than on an annual basis.
And remember, this reflects a health insurance increase of 7%.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So anything you saved on the Remember, everything we saved on the retirement is gone to healthcare.
But the markets have certainly recovered from 2008, from the Great Recession. But it's always, okay, what's next? What, is there another downtick at some point? There always will be ups and downs in the business cycle, but they seem to have locked into a high rate of compensating the retirement system when in fact the market was supposed to do some of that work. But the system is essentially fully funded, right, Brad? I mean,
correct.
We are a state, whereas some, their retirement system is not fully funded.
New Jersey, Illinois, some of the others.
Sure.
For the employees here, it's a fully funded system.
Right. So that's for our employees and for their retirement. They can count on that. It's about as safe as you can get. But it's nice that we're not adding, another $3 million to the. It's not $35 million, because it's going up, millions each year. So that's a good thing.
And again, that's one of the reasons why you keep a reserve, right, for these purposes, because you want to try to take that amounts from the reserve to help balance those changes year to year. And so again, one of the goals that we would have is to try to build back up again, especially the retirement reserves that we district, whatever that might hold for us. So that would be something that would be definitely a goal, not right now, but definitely a goal over our long-range planning. Insurances, so if you imagine of all the campuses that we have really and the liability that we might have on any given day, if you think about this, a lot of people look at this number, I actually think this is very reasonable, and there is an increase from when you're. This is set, our insurance is through NYSER, and actually don't set their rates until after the budget is passed, so they told us to assume this percentage increase at 7%, but we may not realize all of that increase. You're aware that oftentimes comes from the company, not from internally. Okay. Special items and unclassified. So this is actually related to the presentation that we just had. These line items include and the rent. So they were giving you the whole BOCES budget. This would be our share, and also the assessments for the sidewalk and sewer, which was in the budget this year, but an increase for the stormwater, which is new for the following year.
It's a fee, not a tax, right?
It is a fee. Yes, it is a fee, not a tax.
No, I'm just kidding.
It's a tax.
It's a tax.
I might have said tax. I apologize.
No, it's assessment. I mean, we were sold.
And have we cataloged all the sidewalk
I believe
that are the city's problem?
I believe that Paul has been working diligently to get an email through the system, which has been
I suggest hand delivery then.
And so we are working.
Because remember, one of the things that the city, having decided to tax us, they also take on the liability when the sidewalk.
That's right.
So we need to notify them.
Debt service, we've spoken a lot about this at PTA meeting. This is really set as a schedule, and again, remember this is sort of the payments, the principal and the interest of the $98 million bond from back in 2007, along with other projects that we might have had. And so this is again set as a schedule. We get the rates each year. We double check them sometimes, even more. And so right now we're actually probably at that sort of peak principal and interest, and will stay this way, probably in the $8.5 million range, and then it will drop. And so if we don't go forward with
Have you assumed anything about the EPC in this number?
No, so the EPC actually won't hit us for next year. And when we run that and also the
he would put the first payment July 1 of 16.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
Got it.
Great. And also too, then we'll get the savings. We'll
get the savings, right?
And there's building aid on.
That is correct.
Right.
Right. Many
so
of these.
that's also a revenue. There's revenue coming back now that we are at that 8 to 8.5. There's
55% of it comes back as
55% comes back as a revenue on the state aid side.
That's right. That's right. And so when we do the line item budget in 2 weeks from now, we can also, I'll be sure to address a lot of the lines that do leverage the aid. We have some of those internally, like textbook and instructional hardware, but we also then have a lot at either BOCES or through our building
Right.
project.
Just as we were flipping through, just making that point for the folks that are listening.
Yeah. Thank you. And then the interfund transfers, remember I spoke about this already in terms of the operation and maintenance. So the interfund transfer budget is where the pre-K program funds come from and also the capital project related funds come from. Even though there is an increase there, that increase is really because of that change in that coding, right, of the capital. Pre-K did take a hit last year, and so that actually, this increase been adjusted down last year, okay?
And Amanda, why is that called interfund transfers?
So it's
Pre-K is not a local program.
right, and it's actually it's an auditing and a sort of a state fiscal management like a provision. So they actually have to be coded in a fund that you then transfer in. We talked about this at facilities, I think, or finance the last time as well. And this is just the way that
These are the local dollars,
dollars come.
that are going to pre-K.
That's right.
Which is not a local fund, which is not a general
And why
fund
can't we call
operation.
it why can't we call that something else?
Well, on the line item budget, we would probably have a descriptor in there, but for the audit report, this is what it's called.
Because that's what the chart of accounts from the state has it as.
It's a control.
The answer is we're following the state's.
That's right.
It's a control to track flow.
There are many things that, right, perhaps might be illogical. Follow them, right?
There you go.
And then, so the total, if you added up all those slides in terms of the estimated proposed budget for 15-16, we, this year, again, we have an adopted budget of $113,774,956. Right this moment in time, we're proposing or looking at perhaps $115,673,698. As you can see, that's under a 2% change. However, if you take a look at that proposed budget, the $115 million, and you actually away from that, the real revenue that we're getting, and that includes actually the fund balance and the reserves, that is our gap that we're looking at, a $1.3 million gap. Now again, this is still 2 weeks before we propose to you the itemized budget. The next slide just says next steps, but so I think we'll just stay here if that's okay. What I just wanted to sort of talk a little bit about what we'll be doing the next 2 weeks and then ask for some guidance from you, and I think Dr. Brown will be helping me with that. Essentially, we will be looking to try to close that gap as much as possible in the next 2 weeks. We have been meeting with all of the budget developers, including principals and directors. Those meetings will continue, and then so this is sort of where we will analyze all the staffing, we will looking at the program, we will analyze some of the proposed changes to their budget and efficiencies to their budget, and we will say, can we actually move forward with that, what would it look like, and then that will show itself into that line item budget that we propose to you in 2 weeks. We will examine all positions. And again, any proposed cuts that we have or growth that we have will be shared in the next 2 weeks. We will assess all the planned, any kind of planned contingencies that we have. In many budgets we say, we know that this might be necessary. We'll evaluate those one more time and make sure that we're not overfunding or underfunding. And so we'll come to you with that as well. And then finally, we'll be looking to the board and also to other budget developers and stakeholders through, again, a number of meetings. Finance will be happening on a Monday. Moving forward with some advisory committees, talking to staff at all levels, talking to representatives from stakeholder groups. That will all be happening, and so hopefully, in 2 weeks' time, we'll have a budget that we really can say. You will give us a final sort of go-ahead with changes or with alterations, and then by April 14th, we would want to vote. I believe we have a little bit more time after that, but that's the scheduled board meeting in April. We could have a specially scheduled meeting later on in April, but only up to, does that sound familiar? So I believe that we just have a little bit of time after that April 14th meeting if we needed an additional time to talk. We will also then, once the budget is adopted by the board, we will then also have a budget hearing in May. And again, Danielle and I will be sharing all that information with you probably on an updated budget calendar the next time we come together. We'll have options available to you. In terms of next steps from the board, Dr.
There's
Allen.
a key question that we would love to have answered tonight as we go into the next 2 weeks. The numbers here assume that we're going to the tax cap number. And I know we've had this conversation before, but we want to make sure we're still in that same place when the board said that we would go to the tax cap, but not beyond the tax cap. If not going to the tax cap, we're looking at a larger gap than the 1.3 that we have here before. So I guess that's the conversation. And what would be the percentage? What's the number for the tax cap this year?
Daniel, if we can go back to that first slide, thank you. Or it's the second slide, I believe, the revenue slide.
And now we're not talking about tax rate, but a tax.
No, right, and tax, and again, I'll educate, the public in terms of what's the difference between the levy and the rate, but we'll do that, that's a little confusing right now. So if you, again, the third line, the property tax levy, that is the maximum levy amount that we can move forward with a simple majority.
And do we have any estimate? I mean, is the assessment office giving any guidance yet?
They haven't, and I apologize. I did send the email. I believe I sent it yesterday morning, and so that I think I didn't give them enough lead time for this meeting, but I will have it by the 24th.
So we don't know what the growth is yet. So we don't know.
That is correct.
Okay.
So do you want to address the tax levy first, and then get into other issues, other questions?
I think at the moment I'm okay. Assuming to go to the cap, I'm going to want to see what that effect's going to be on rate. Is it going to be a 3.1, or is there should be no growth in the tax base, or is it going to be 1.5% or something? Is there? I mean, my assumption is there's growth.
It's going to be less.
We can see construction all around town, so my assumption is the rate will be less than the levy increase, but we didn't. It'll be important to be able to tell the taxpayers what that's going to be.
And certainly don't expect real estate values to decrease.
Well, as we know, last year there was one neighborhood in particular that had been reassessed upward significantly, not just adjusted. So they unfortunately got the double whammy of a significant assessment increase, and then our rate went up as well. So unfortunately there was one neighborhood in particular that got a double whammy last year.
You would expect the tax rate to be less than 3.1.
I'm expecting, hopefully we're going to hear it's 1.5 or 1.25
right, exactly.
on that. But I don't. But that's just guessing.
Other comments on tax levy? Jay?
Can anyone recall what our computed 2%, the so-called 2% tax levy increase amount was last year?
Our cap?
Right, because, I mean, we went to the voters. We went to the voters and asked for a higher.
Right. I suspect
was it 2 something?
No, it was higher.
It had 3 in it.
What the proposed number?
No.
No, the calculated.
Calculated limit number.
Let me see if I can find.
Well, the reason I mention it is that I think it's unfortunate to have to be talking about going to the maximum tax cap calculation. You can't trust the state as what new rule, what new you can't do this. You can't. We got burned on that.
That's what I was about to say.
We acted in good faith, going below the levy limit for all the right reasons, trying to protect the local taxpayer in a recession, and then we're blindsided by the state when we could not use that. The amount that we did not use, we were able to carry it forward, and then 2 falls ago, I guess they took it away. Once burned, I guess you're not going to burn me twice.
So these huge uncertainties that the state has now taught us to deal with puts you in the position of having to.
And at this table we talked about risk management last year, and whether to override or not, and the risk obviously if we did not make a good decision that way to go to contingency budget, and then really resetting our budget at a very low level for this year, and always thankful that we were able to override that one time, but really trying to protect programming, trying to protect staff. I would think we would have to have a conversation with the community that will go to the levy limit. whatever, at this point, whatever the governor and Albany says it is, I'm going to trust that's the levy limit, and we're not going to exceed it, and go for a regular majority and run the numbers from there. Certainly, that's what I would recommend. And that will be a lot less of an increase than last year, right, Brad?
Right,
So,
right.
wow, there you go. That's a good thing. Chris, weigh in.
I'm just thinking of the glory years when we had board members advocating for 0% increase. And we actually discussed it. I mean, we discussed being that responsible. Those days are over.
Well,
We're not set to casino. I don't want to take that risk.
State funding's less than it was.
I mean, right, so
5
we're
years
flat.
ago.
I mean, we're less than, less than it was, and so, it's really a concerted effort to put more and more on the shoulders of the local taxpayer, and we certainly understand that, but we also don't want to gut the district, so, or at least I don't. Well, we have been a board that have consistently tried to provide as much as we can, and so I'm certainly hearing that we'll go to the levy limit, maybe 3.12, I don't know, or 3.10 or whatever, but whether we want to just to give us,
Leave it at that for now.
Just so I'm
Three,
clear, we don't actually have the formula we need to figure that number out exactly.
Well, Amanda had guidance that, of course, is contrary to law, because the law said you were to use the governor's state aid runs, but you received guidance from SED on how to prepare it.
And so I used the numbers. The Questar BOCES worked with the Albany offices to try to give us an estimate of what that would look like. They will reopen, so the formula is correct. The factors that are put into the formula are still up. And so what they'll do is they will reopen that tax cap into the state comptroller's office. I had to put that in by, oh gosh, I think it was like the end of February. I had to upload that formula. They will reopen that once the state aid runs from the governor's office are given to the districts.
So the number is going to change.
It could fluctuate, and that's why I think when Questar was working with Albany, they tried to give the best guesstimate. Now I have to say I've really trusted their work. I know that the Questar folks have come to the finance committee. They really have excellent abilities to be as, they're pretty accurate. So, but still, you're right. There could be minor fluctuations.
Outside of SED, they're the experts, aren't they?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And so we're.
All that we should use 3.13.
Yeah, and as far as the state aid number, at this point, we're still at flat. Both the Assembly and the Senate put out their one single chamber bills, and they're different, of course, and look at it differently. They're both suggesting that they're not going to tie them to the policy changes the governor wanted, and that's a fight that they're going to have in Albany. The Senate did propose eliminating the GEA in its entirety. The Assembly did not, proposed about 45% elimination of the GEA, and I haven't been able to see yet how that breaks down to us, but in the past we've been the losers as they decrease it. The downstate gets the lion's share and we get less, and I have no reason to believe, given the downstate dominance of the Assembly, that would change, which is why we want them to eliminate it in its entirety so that we get our share again of the aid. The Senate proposed an increase in the foundation aid. The Assembly proposed $1 billion increase in foundation aid, so they looked at it differently.
They put the Assembly put more weight on the foundation aid.
GEA elimination, and that's because that benefits a particular school district in a large metropolitan area, and so that was That's their proposal there. On the pre-K, it looks like they're going to continue to fund over $300 million to the city of New York, and another $40 million because 4-year-olds in upstate New York aren't worth as much as 4-year-olds in Brooklyn. My understanding is full-day programs would qualify, but it's a grant system, as I understand it, so we'd have to apply, compete for the money. But at least we're able to compete, and they're changing it. They would fund in the current year, not be a reimbursement. As you recall, last year they only put $40 million upstate, and they said, and by the way, you spend it and we'll reimburse you later. So they at least are making that change. So long way of saying, Jay, I have no clue, because remember the governor has said, unless you adopt my policy changes, you're only going to get $377 million increase, and that would be about $50,000 to us.
Prepare for the worst and hope for the best.
Yeah, I mean, $1 billion increase in foundation aid sounds huge. I don't know, $300,000 to $400,000 in Ithaca, New York is what it would be. DEA continues to be the item we're most focused on. If it's eliminated, we're looking at over $2 million.
Right. And last year the GEA was 2.8?
2.8.
Right, 2.8 last year, and that would, if it's everything being equal, we'd be looking at 2.8.
Yeah, it won't be equal. If they do it, they'll still.
Oh no, they'll play
change.
with it.
They'll play with it, and they'll change the foundation formula so that we'll get less.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, in those ranges.
Long way of saying no clue where we're headed on the state aid front, and whether we're headed there on time. I know Amanda's going to come back, and Dr. Brown in 2 weeks with a proposal. I think they won't have any further guidance from the state.
In 2 weeks now?
No, they don't have any further guidance, so I think you're looking at zero.
And our vote is on time, correct?
Our vote still has to happen on time, so we need to keep charging ahead.
Okay. To that point, I think we're pretty much to the levy limit. If I could ask, can I change subjects? Amanda, you've got the revenue projection at 114. On your final screen, it has a proposed budget of 115 and change. So tell me where that new top line number comes from. I mean, you're going to get into it, I assume, but that number is, Dr. Brown. That's a number that's not a number.
That's right now.
A rollover plus. How I can explain it? We rolled over budget, made some reductions already, but we need to do more.
Right, and so that's what in the next 2 weeks, I sort of wanted to get a sense that actually to start the conversation to show that's the gap right now to date without any cuts, with some of the changes that we've made. Directed back to the drawing board, there are certain things that we probably will be able to do to make some changes. There might be some staffing shifts in terms of if we know about retirements, we might not, if we'll evaluate if that position is sort of easy, right? Sure. There might be some changes in terms of, like I said, some of the contingencies that we plan. We might go back to the budget developers and say, no, in fact, we will look at that, and we don't need to plan for 2 of those. We need to just have 1, right? Especially for special ed is one example.
I know. Could you flip to the list?
Right. But the reality is, I mean, this is a lot of work. So we're going to do the exact, that same process of really gathering information, assessing what made up these numbers in the broad scale in terms of the line items that go into this, and then start trimming from there.
So the 115,673, that would be a budget that essentially does everything that we did this past year.
That's right. That is essentially what we know the district to be today. And carried forward to next year.
Similar number of pre-K classrooms, et cetera, not cutting but not adding. Same offerings basically at Guy School for Jason's budgeting, and so
right.
actually stats
No new program offered.
Yeah.
No, nothing
Right,
new.
and if you're, last year, the gap was quite large, and that's why we felt a lot of that, right? This year, I mean, you know, and if we hadn't done the depths of cuts that we did last year, a $1.3 million gap, and then probably last year would have been, it still would have hurt, but it would have been easier work than I think what we're doing now.
Good, right.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to benefits. I mean, we've had conversations about healthcare. I mean, we're assuming healthcare, not assuming, we know healthcare is going to be going up 7%. I know you've been doing some work on, you know, what that looks like. I don't know if you have any of those slides to share, but I mean, for some of our employees who have family care, I mean, we're looking at people paying 30-40% of their gross wages.
Well, that will happen, right?
In
Right
5 to
now,
10 years, if we stay on this current path.
There are some staff members, the average salary for that unit, if you take their average salary and look at, of the percentage that they pay in health insurance, and if they have a family plan, they're paying about 20% of their gross salary. This is before any kind of benefits are taken out of their gross salary. 20% of that would go toward the cost of their share of the family plan. Over the years, that would jump all the way up to about 26%.
Of their gross
in 10
pay.
years, again, because what I did was I looked at sort of that consistent 60 over the course of time and what that would do.
That's correct.
In the next 20 years, those same folks would be paying over, even by keeping just their portion, their small portion of that family health plan. If their salary went up on average 2% each year, in 20 years they'd be paying over 50% of their salary in benefits.
So
And
we're currently hitched to a program that's going to fail.
It tends to ask the question of ability both for the employer and the employee,
Right.
depending on your take home.
Hence the reason I keep asking, you know, where we're headed with that, because it's the only thing we have has really been the cost. What's going on with that thing?
Would you like me to repeat that back again?
I'm not recording it.
It's the reason I keep bringing it up. It's the one thing we can bend the cost curve on, and now that we know how it's going to hurt employees over the course of a 5 to 10 year time frame, we need to be looking at the changes there. And I continue to encourage management to do what they can, bring some of it to bear by July.
Siri doesn't understand healthcare, but there's a lot of humans out there that do. And certainly, it's cost to the employees, but obviously there's the cost to the district and the cost to the community to sustain this model.
But it's not sustainable for either right now.
Right. That's an issue. So when I'm looking at those the 1.3 number, that actually could be a lot worse in years past. That would have been the delta would have been much larger. So costs have been constrained. Revenue is certainly constrained. So at least when you go back to your red line and your blue line, at least we're getting closer.
Right.
And we do need to be in a healthy. Our top line needs to be, above.
But that's still a number of people.
Oh no, yeah. At least it's not 5 million. That's a good thing. So we can start to work.
We'll be working on that in the next 2 weeks. So we'll get that gap as close as we can. I mean, I can't guarantee you that we'll make the lines cross, but we'll come to you with a.
And to the point. I mean, so we're trying to provide all the programming that we had last year. Try to provide the staffing that we had last year. And really, if the state would just come to the party just a little bit,
right.
Just a little, and that's why it's so important to keep advocating for some common sense in Albany. Get rid of the politics. Well, you can't get rid of the politics, but get some reality into their thinking. So
and there may be much more. There might be more information in the next 2 weeks also. So I might be able to come back to you to say, this is what the work that we did got us here. With the new information got us here. Or this is
I like your optimism, but
I am grounded optimist, as you know.
And new information is coming. one train of thought, and we've talked about this, is those new dollars go into fund balance, because right now we're still sitting on, we aren't happy with the amount of reserves we have.
Right.
So we're going to go to the drawing board and figure out how to get these $100 with efficiencies. And I'm saying to you now, we may not be advocating for those to come back if new dollars are coming in.
Gotcha.
Could somebody refresh my memory? How many teachers in reserve did we have last year at the end of this process?
0.
It was 0.
0.
Real easy number.
So we keep things the same. Hypothetically, Jason gets 40 more kids dropped on him day one. Where do we go?
So that was our current budget.
Yeah.
That's our current budget. Right now, we've actually brought back 2 teacher reserves. This budget includes that, mainly because that's one of those contingencies, right, that we wanted to plan for. We felt that that was a huge risk last year to have 0. So this rollover budget that we're showing you right now, that would include 2 teacher reserve, and that would be in your line item that you'll see. However, again, if that's something that we feel is an easy cut to attain, we would propose that for you next time we're together.
Years past, we used to have 4, 6. I remember 6.
Yes, I've watched the trend over time. I mean,
Yeah.
we've cut back on them. Again, the work will be really good work. It will not be easy work.
Definitely do more with less.
That's all we have.
Thank you. That was helpful.
Anything else? Other comments? You good, Dr. Brown?
I'm good.
Okay, all right.
See you on the 24th.
Thanks, Amanda. Don't go too far, Amanda. We do have one more item that's facilities finance related, so you might as well stay there. And Brad, weigh in.
Yeah, I'll distributed a resolution to you. I'm going to make a couple of changes. And this came up, well, actually, some of this was from last year. Summer projects that we withdrew, didn't go forward with for cost reasons. We thought we'd rather run them through State Education Department and get aid on them to, again, try and keep maximizing our building aid. And then we've got some improvements out at the transportation facility that we want to do as well. So at facilities last night, we had a pretty lengthy conversation about the 2007 bond still has some money left in it. So what we're going to propose, what this resolution is going to propose is to use some of that money for those projects, assuming we get SED approval and get aid on them. But this would allow Amanda and ahead with those. So resolutions in front of you. I'm going to make a couple changes. The third paragraph, describe in the last line, describing the letter from Hunt Engineers. I'm going to insert not to exceed $523,673. Then you'll flip to Exhibit A on the back under Transportation Facility. I'm going to strike, and Danielle, I have a copy to hand you. You don't have to. Yeah. I'm going to strike the first line, the second line, the fourth line, and the fifth line. So then the total for transportation becomes $198,750. The total construction becomes $425,750. Your contingency becomes $34,060. Your incidental budget $3,863 for a total of $523,673. And I strike the line having to do with the alternate there as well. So I'll move that as I have described it to you.
So,
Need a second.
J. True seconds. So, I was at the meeting and I thought that they wanted the, you're saying for now no money allocated for the Fall Creek maintenance entrance? You struck it?
We struck, that's the second piece. Go back up, let your eye go back up.
Yeah.
The Fall Creek replace concrete walks at maintenance entrance,
Yes.
17,000.
strike?
No, that's in.
Right, I thought that was all.
That was in.
Yeah.
We said we'd do the 3 items there, the 3 items at Boynton,
Okay.
and then the
Yeah,
2
we said-
and then the 2 items education.
Yeah.
It's a sidewalk on the north side of the bus parking lot, and it's some office improvements.
Not to exceed a dollar amount, certainly.
Not to exceed the dollar amounts, right?
Going to redo that one. And again, to point out, these are items that we've been using the capital reserve for over the last 5 years. Capital reserves are getting down to the point we can't do some of, we have been doing a few of these projects. High school is a good example of the courtyards and redoing some concrete there. That really, that's not really in the operating budget to pull out funds to add to reserves, and so we're getting low on those reserves for the 2010 capital reserve.
Capital reserve, right, that's
Right.
the last.
The 2010 capital reserve.
Oh, that's right, there was a 2013.
Is it?
It's a 2013
2013,
reserve.
sorry, yep. Time flies. Time flies.
That's right, last year we moved the 2010 remaining
into-
funds into the 2013.
Right.
Right, and so again, these are not monies coming out of the operating budget. We can't use these funds that are part of that 2007 bond-approved referendum. So these are funds that obviously can go to improvements at the various buildings that we have.
And when we take money out of the capital reserve, we don't get building aid.
Right.
By doing this, we'll get building aid on it, so we're maximizing the aid.
And there's a few, like the phone system is really archaic at the transportation center.
We struck that.
But looking at other ways to probably get that renovated.
Through the IT program.
Right, and so it's not that it's not an important item, but it's just we'll try to do it a different way and still get it. So, other questions? Do you have any other alterations to the resolution?
No, Mel, pass it down.
Oh, okay.
Danielle.
Did you move it, Brad?
I did. Jay seconded.
Oh, there you go. Jay, I wasn't even paying attention. We moved, discussed, and a little bit moved, seconded, and discussed. Any other real questions? Okay. All in favor? That's everyone. So thanks, Amanda.
You're very welcome.
Thanks, Brad, for taking us through that.
Yep.
You see, it comes to a committee on Monday and it's passed on Tuesday. I mean,
Not bad, huh?
wow.
Right.
If Albany only worked like we do, there would be we'd have to be ready to go. Speaking of working like we do,
I'd move that we move to executive session for the subject of negotiations.
so we do have to move back into and seconded by Jay, correct?
Yeah, second.
We do have to move back in. We didn't finish all that we need to do, so we're going to go do that. All in favor? Yes. We're without objection. We're going to go do that. Everybody else can go home.